There are some common questions faculty have related to academic integrity. The truth is, you never really even know in the traditional classroom that the student taking your class or exam is the actual student enrolled. One strategy is to use personal approaches via the discussion forums and other periodic tests, assignments, or assessments. These can be very personalized to include personal experiences of the students. Collaborate sessions are another way that connect you live with your student, and you'll actually be able to see their faces, hear their voices, and a personalized approach to ensure, hey, that's the student that's registered for this course. Keep in mind, most people are honest, and by having strategies such as addressing academic integrity early in the course, it keeps most people honest. Yeah, this can be difficult to prevent students from collaborating on assignments and tests online. But if you utilize the strategies that we talked about before, the Moodle settings, so not all students are receiving the same test, this addresses this issue head on. Also, think about designing some assessments in the course where collaboration is actually encouraged or even required. Thinking about using qualitative, open-ended assessments, blogs, journals, discussion forums, so you become familiar with the student's writing. Well, we have that same concern in the face-to-face environment, and I think it's important to obviously clearly explain it in your syllabus as well as any other media that you can in the online class, the cheating policy, just to address it and reiterate it throughout the semester. I think also a lot of times students don't understand what cheating is. They're taking pictures of everything now in their everyday life, and they're sharing it, they're posting it to Facebook, Instagram, so they think, well, yeah, why not? Why can't I just take a picture of a quiz and share it? But it needs to be addressed that is considered cheating. So it's an education opportunity. Well, I think utilizing a variety of assessments helps. Not just sort of the didactic, basic knowledge, retention, information questions, multiple choice, some things like that, but using actually higher level and higher order questions. Questions that they can't just look up in a book, but really that they have to critically think and critically apply thought and maybe processes or theories to the question being asked. And don't just think about tests. There are a variety of assessments that you can use. For example, discussion forums, blogs, wikis, writing assignments, group assignments, peer assessments are all great ways to assess the student's learning outcomes. I think those situations have to be handled on a case-by-case basis. There are cases where students have maybe intentionally sent blank files, and they're really seeking an extension, or it's a file that's in the wrong format, and just being very clear in your syllabi about it needs to be in this format. If it's Word, it's in Word. If it's in PDF, whatever it is. And obviously, if they're submitting it through Turnitin, that takes care of that problem. I would do also a preliminary check, once the assignments are due, and just taking a quick glance at each of the students' assignments just to make sure they're in the correct format. I think the most important feature that will become your friend is looking at Moodle reports. That will show if there were any technical issues or when the student completed the quiz, how many questions they completed on that quiz. You can also check the Moodle homepage to see if there were any technical issues while the quiz was in session. However, more times than not, that's not the case. There are some useful teaching strategies that you can implement, and they apply not only to your online or hybrid courses, but also your face-to-face courses as well. When thinking about academic integrity, it provides the opportunity to think about different pedagogical solutions that can be used in your course. For example, one way is to create iterative assignments that build on previous submissions. So essentially drafts that are building, and you're able to provide the student feedback on each iteration or draft of a final paper or project. Having frequent assignments throughout the semester can be important because you're using a variety of assessment methods. Having a test or quiz debrief where you ask specific questions about the student's responses. You can use assignments that relate to lived experiences or current events. Sometimes, when I teach, I'll have a student talk about a personal story or actually tie in a current event that's actually happening. And it creates more of an engaged environment for the student. and require discussion forums throughout the course. Discussion forums are just a great way to really engage with the learner and, more importantly, for peer-directed learning. And this allows the professor to become familiar with the student's writing, as we talked about before. Dealing with academic integrity is an ongoing challenge. I hope you have found some of these strategies useful for your teaching.